Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have an opportunity to work on a beautiful reel that Sammy sent in. You saw some of these previewed. I really didn't go into the depth and detail of all of the ones that he sent, but this one is an Accurate reel. And what's interesting about this one is it's a star drag reel. So most of the Accurate reels that get reputation are the lever drag reels in that small format. Well, this one is a star drag. This one is the Tern 400. It's the Accurate reel made in the US. We're going to take this reel apart. We'll show you how to service it and how to keep this one running for Sammy for a long time to come. But we're going to start by taking off the exterior pieces and parts. And as I do, I want to encourage you all to please subscribe to my channel if you like the art of reel repair, if you like to learn how fishing reels come together and come apart, how to service them and keep them fishing, and well, my channel is called Second Chance, how to give reels a second chance. Well, the Accurate reel is one of those annoying ones. Everybody doesn't have the tool in their little kit bag. These are Torx screws, Torque head, and this one is a Torque 8 size for the handle, but then they move over to Torque 6 size, which is a smaller one. It's a star shape on the end of the Torx. But they go over to the side with the smaller one, which means you have to change your bits. I'm going to remove the handle right now. I generally like to take the exterior parts off as much as I can before going on and taking the interior pieces off. And in some cases, that's the only way you can do that. But once we remove that cap, you're going to see a C-clip here, or an E-clip. I guess it's an E-clip. I tend to always call them C-clips. But that one has to come off. That's much like what you'll find on an Abu Ambassador. There's a little ring in the gear sleeve post that's holding that on. And you want to hold this clip because as you bring it out, you don't want it flying, because if it starts flying, well, you're going to have to go find it before you can continue to do anything else. So right now I've got it trapped. You can see how it came off. And I'll show you the clip in just a moment here. But if you're nervous about that, if you're not comfortable with your skill set in taking these little clamps off, that's the little clamp right there, what you want to do is do it inside of a Ziploc bag. And if you remove it inside of a gallon bag, generally speaking, if it does shoot, it's going to come against the walls of the plastic bag rather than out on your desk somewhere. Well, pull up on your handle. Underneath the handle, you're going to see a screw or a washer. And this is a good part to tell you a couple of things. One is about keeping track of your pieces and parts. I do that here in the tray. You can see the C-clip is already in there, or E-clip. The cap is in there, the handle, and that handle washer. The other way to keep track of these things is you want to go ahead and take pictures. Now, I'm taking pictures in a video, but I haven't done every reel, and I may not have done your reel. So what you want to do in that situation is you want to take pictures along the way. Use a cell phone camera, use a video, use standard digital, whatever works for you. Use that to take the pictures at critical places. And here's a critical place. We just took the handle off. This springs up. There's nothing underneath. Then you have a spring. Well, in this case, the spring, both the diameter on both sides of the spring is the same, so that doesn't matter too much in how it mounts back. I'm going to take that, I'm going to put that right into the star adjuster, and then I'm going to put the star adjuster in here. Then we have a little nut type mechanism here that's going to ride inside the cap, and that's going to enable you to put the pressure on the drag stack. That's the idea behind a star adjuster. You can vary the pressure. Underneath that nut, I thought it was a bearing the way it looks, but it's a nut, there's a washer. It's independent of that nut, and that goes below the stack. So just remember that as you go to reinstall. And then it looks like we probably have a shim washer in here. Another shim washer. Yeah, so we have two washers underneath there. And then your access to the inner case now should be fine. You should be able to remove this case when we remove the screws without backing up against anything. Well, we had to switch over now. We had to go to the smaller Torx. This is the T6. I use a micro driver set that I got from Harbor Freight. There's a lot of them out there. It's not too expensive. And every now and then you get these little quirks in the way that manufacturers like to put things together. And most of the time you can work with a Phillips head and a flat-bladed screwdriver, but in some cases, well, it's not that easy. I don't know if they want to just keep us from servicing our own reels, or if it's a simpler thing to do from a machine tooling standpoint, or what it may be. Regardless, you need the Torx screw head to make this work. That's 3 of the 4. I'm putting them into my case to make sure they're all the same size. If there's a shorter one in the case, you want to note that. This is the 4th one, and if it's anything like the Accurates that are the lever drags that I've worked on, well, that case is just going to come off now. So let's see how we do. We were able to remove the case, and you can see that most of the business side of this reel is over here. We have a spool. You want to remove your spool, because usually you can find something like this. It's a dirty set of old grease inside here that got mopped around. I'm not sure. Sometimes I'm thinking that they put that grease in there to prevent corrosion. I don't know. This is an aluminum framed reel, I believe, so it shouldn't corrode up. But what you do want to do is, there's a bearing in the back here, and after you're done mopping up and cleaning, a little bit more going on here, you want to oil that bearing, a couple of drips and drops, get the oil onto that click mechanism, and then just check the back of your spool here. Make sure that that's nice and clean and tight, and it is. And we're leaving the braid on. Somebody's left that on. I generally encourage you, when you're getting your reels tuned up, to change the line. And I know, every now and then folks, have economy in mind, and they'll ask me, do I need to change the line? Well, if it's monofilament, well, that's cheap enough. Easy for me to say, cheap enough. But I would recommend always changing the monofilament about once a year. And if you got the braid, maybe go 2 years, but I wouldn't go any more. And it's funny how we tend to lose track of time. So folks will tell me, oh, it's a year old or 2 years old, and you get in there and the braid's frayed, and just a general wear and tear situation that couldn't have been accomplished in the 2 years. So just use your instinct. You know your reel, and make sure that that's it. Well, this is the back side of the reel then. What have we done? We cleaned it out. We oiled the bearing. We greased the back of the spool shaft. We've also put grease on the front of the shaft. We've cleaned the 2 shoulders on the spool shaft. That can be set aside now. All right, there's actually real screws here. There's 4 Phillips head screws, which are going to give us access to the back plate. And we'll be able to take that off now. This is the bridge plate. And again, as soon as I take those off, I like to put them into a parts tray so that I don't misplace the pieces. Whatever your organization, some folks like to lay them out on a towel or on their workbench in the order that they've taken the pieces off, and then when they go to reassemble, they just reverse the order. That's fine. Some people like to put them in plastic bags. Whatever works for you. Mine is more organized chaos. I've been asked that more than once about my organization. I just kind of put them in different corners in the box, and well, they tend to hold up. Okay, this should come off now. There we go. Just push it all the way through, turn it over, and then pull up to reveal, well, more grease inside here, the last of the washers, the big collar that goes into the anti-reverse, and you have an instant anti-reverse here. Look at the size of this reel. I'm not sure what the gear ratio is, probably 6 or 7 to 1. It's a high-speed reel. You want to notice a couple of things. One of them is that this yoke system here has got to mate with the stud on the eccentric to make that work properly. All right, a couple of things. Let's go mop this up. I'm going to use some penetrating oil just to loosen that old case grease there. And like a lot of things, when it's fresh grease, it's a good intention. When the grease starts to dry out and get dirty, it's a detriment to the reel. It actually will work against you. That grease will hold dirt, and if it's really bad stuff like salt and the like, it's going to become abrasive. And if it's abrasive, well, it's going to start eroding on your pieces and parts. So a couple of things. That's another reason why you want to clean your reels on an annual basis. Get rid of that stuff and don't risk injury. These reels are not cheap. I think if I was to hazard a guess, the last time I've seen them, they were in the neighborhood of $300 or something. So you want to protect your investment, and the way to do that is to make sure that as you go about doing the reels that you take care of them. All right, this is the anti-reverse piece. It's just a solid nugget kind of thing. Put that off to the side. This is the top washer for your stack, and we can pull this whole piece off now. Notice that you have a Teflon washer underneath. We also have the pinion gear and yoke. Those two are almost like Newell would do them. We have little C-clips holding that in. And well, I think the cleaning is done, and I have to take my glove off to work these E-clips. I said C-clips. I always say C-clips. And that's on me. Push down to separate these. And use just finger strength here. And you're looking for two things. You don't want to lose the spring, and you don't want to lose the E-clip. Find another little section right in my bag box for that. We'll go ahead and do the other side. And again, if you're a little bit weak of heart, you can go ahead and do this inside of a bag. Here's your E-clip and your spring. It kind of looks like the way that Newell did it all those years ago. Now we can lift up on the yoke. This is a good place for a picture now. Lift up on your yoke to bring that yoke out, because you want to clean that. Remember what the front is. I'm holding the front right now. But if you go up, I dropped it, what am I going to do, right? That was for demonstration purposes. I intended to drop that. You're going to notice that there is a slanted position on the back here. And that is the back. So it will face this way going forward. And then we have our jack. Let's see if we can get that up easy enough. Just going to bring that out. And that's your ramp for the jack. You can see how it's ramped. So that slope side of your yoke and that ramp, well, they're going to set like this. That's how it gets nice and flat. Just mop up the back here. You don't have to do anything with that Teflon washer that's on there. That's self-lubricating. All right, that's it. So let's go ahead and just make sure that this gets some fresh grease and reinstalled. I'm going to use fishing reel grease for this. I recommend that you only use fishing reel grease. I'm using Penn Precision reel grease. You can use the reel grease of your choice. Most manufacturers don't make the grease. Most of them have the grease made for them. And well, they're all good. All right, we're going to get the grease on both sides. This is the back side where the slide is going to go on. If you weren't paying attention before, this faces down when you go to put the yoke in. Inspect all of the teeth to make sure that they're nice and clean. And then go ahead and give it a nice coating of grease. Find the back side, orient it properly. Let's seat that back down. And before we get too much further, let's take those springs and clip and put them back on so that we get them out of harm's way. I always get a little concerned with these when I'm working on these reels, that I may lose them somewhere along the line. And so when I have the opportunity to reinstall a piece, I well, I try and do that as soon as I can. Just going to grab my pliers for the last little pull there. Looks like I didn't push the spring down all the way, so let's do this over again. You need to hold the spring down. I was trapping the spring wire in the groove that's going to accept the E-clip. So push that all the way down. Make sure it's not trapped in the groove. Be careful that you keep the pressure on there, otherwise it's going to shoot to the moon. And I'll apologize if my hand is getting in the way here, but that's just kind of the way it works. Okay, so we have both of them back together again. And let's go ahead and just service the rest of this reel. It's a pretty straightforward reel. You have, I guess they call them twin drags. You got drags on both sides of the stack here. It's a lot of drags. This has got a lot of max drag in it. All right, these are fabric washers. What you want to do on the fabric washers, you want to make sure that they're nice and clean from a cross-hatching standpoint. So get a hard brush, get a paper towel, and pull out the dirt that might be in there, or the dried grease. You do not need to grease these, but you do need to clean them. That's the first. Clean off the metals. If there was any burrs or deep corrosion in them, make sure that you buff them out to make them nice and smooth. You can see how the hard brush just pulls all that dirt right out. Now this would be typically the what you would call the eared washer. These fins are going to fit inside the main gear and lock the main gear when it's time to work on the or when it's time to invoke the drag. So one set of drag washers is actually going to connect your post. That would be these with the keyed washers. And one is going to connect your gear, which is those offset washers. Okay. So that was the wide one. And I've just, for everybody's information, I've pulled the schematic here to make sure that we have the right setup to this, so that as you're working on this, you can make sure that it's being done properly. In addition to filming or taking your pictures, go find the schematic to the reel. I just had a question in my mind on this post. Where does those small washers go? Well, they go up top, so no worry there. Okay, I've taken the time to organize the washers. They are twin drives, so they are the same on both sides. And interestingly enough, the piece that spans both sides is a little copper piece that's called the bridge sleeve. So that's going to fit snugly into your main gear, and it's going to hold that first washer. And then what you want to do is bring a metal washer in, then bring your eared washer in, and then your cap washer. In this case, I've already put that metal washer on the back of the main gear sleeve. Hold that and send that through. And if you did that right, you'll only have a small lip here on that main gear sleeve. This is the one for the other side, which is going to fit over that lip. Just like that. You bring your metal one in, your other eared washer. And again, we've scrubbed these with the brush to clean them up. Then our cap washer, and then we have the one that's going to ride in the clutch, so that's your gear sleeve for that. That's your main gear assembly. Let's go ahead and put some grease on it before we finish that up. I was checking the teeth earlier. I may not have mentioned it, but you certainly want to go check the teeth. And then we'll just give that a good coat of grease as well. And you can see the quality of components. I'm going to guess this is a stainless drive. I'm not a metallurgist, but it kind of looks like stainless. You can set that whole piece back onto our frame. We oil the bearing. So this one was all the way down. So when we go to reinstall, you want to aim your stud on your eccentric being the low position. Let's bring this over, bring this on, and see if we can't get that to click in there. Okay, well, it's clicking in. I see it's pulling in and out. That's exactly what we want it to do. So we're going to go back now and grab those 4 Phillips head screws to start our reassembly. When I do these and I have kind of a north-east-southwest positioning, I like to alternate and do it in that way. That way I can keep the tension on the case equal. So we're going to go do that on the back side here now. We'll come across 180 degrees. We'll get that one done. So if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, maybe you're working on one and you're stuck, maybe you're just curious about when a particular reel was made. Scott just sent me a group of reels from the West Coast. He said, do you know any idea of when this specific reel was made? And happened to be a Mitchell, and the Mitchells have a long history. I mean, they made over 3 million Mitchells. They used to be serialized, and then they stopped serializing them after a while. We'll go do some research. We'll see if we can't find that answer for Scott. All right, just check to make sure that you have that release. This is the first piece back on the main gear. It's a little spacer, and we're going to be able to match the case up. And then we're back to our Torx screws. Once you've mated the case. And this is the small Torx again. Find the hole. And just like the other one, I like to go side to side. So let's put one in on this side here. Let's grab another one and put it right in the middle of the other side. And then we'll be able to get the last 2 in. And again, these are Torx screws. They're not Allen heads. They're not Phillips or any of those others. They've chosen Torx. This is the 6 and the 8. We're using the 6. It starts from small and goes to large, so 6 is smaller than the 8 from a size. All right, last one goes in here. Have our click ratchet on, give it a spin. It spins nicely. Make sure your handle's turning. Good with that. Next up, we have those 2 tension washers for your bottom of your stack. Then we have to thread that nut on. Remember, there's a rim on one side and nut on the other. That rim is going to accept the spool, the spring, not the spool. So let's make sure we put that on correctly. And you always want to start these by hand, because they're very easy to cross strip when you're working on a main pinion gear. Hold the spool so that you don't turn the pinion. Work that down as much as you can by hand. The more clearance you get, the easier it's going to be to put the handle back on. All right, that's down about as far as that's going to go. I'm going to take the spring out of our star adjuster, seat the spring in a groove inside that, And now you need a little bit of hand strength again. Find the flat sides of the next part. The next part is going to be to put the washer on, like that. Alright, and then once you do that, grab your nut cap. Let's go ahead and put that back on. And again, start everything by hand. Make sure that you're square as you're doing this. There we go. This takes a little patience. Go ahead and tighten that down. But before you tighten it down too much, tighten your star drag in so that you don't trap your star drag. And let's move it so that we can get our set screw in. Now we're moving back to our 8mm, our T8 Torx for that set screw. Started with that, and then we'll just finish off with the driver. Wow, nice project, nice reel. We'll give it a test in a moment, make sure everything's working as it should. But overall, a nice reel. Nice and smooth operation. Let's flip that in free spool. You have a nice casting. You have a spool control over here if you need it. You back it off a little bit, it'll spin faster. Nice easy turn. Drags are holding beautifully. You saw there's a ton of max drag in this reel. I don't know what it is, but those are very big and very plentiful drag washers. Make sure that it holds, and then before you leave, back this adjuster off. You don't want to compress those drag washers. That leads to premature wear. Okay, that's it. Wow. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do to keep us safe. To everyone, please stay safe, stay well, have a great holiday season, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.